November the 23rd, 2014, last year, one day away from today, I began a series in this church that I preached 4 Sundays in a row. And it was called Declaring War on Your Debt. Anybody remember that? Yes. And I spoke on the subject of this for 4 weeks. And at the time, the national debt was $17,972,723,36,943.10. Now, just take the number and round it and say 17 trillion. That's a big number, isn't it? Now, as of November the 22nd, today, 2015, the new debt is 18 trillion, 723,186,420,531.09. Wow. Now, that means what's happening is that we have $2.32 billion increase every day. Every day we have $2.32 billion increase every single day. How many of you would like to have that bill? Well, I'm going to disappoint you today. You do. Debt is killing our future and our children's future. Have you heard that? And it's strangling the church from its dominion role to change society and to affect the culture. Our dear councilman was gracious to say this church becomes a face of compassion or a face of the real church's role to touch a community. That's why we've given away, this year will be our 14th house to give away for free. Because the church cannot sit inside the sanctuary. Come on. Now, in that light of that thought, here's the thing. But if the church doesn't get a hold of its debts, and I mean the church members, the populace, if we don't really get a hold of our debt, it limits our ability to have any influence on the culture. Yeah. Nehemiah chapter 5, verses 1 through 13. I don't have the time to read it all, but I want you to put it on the board and put verse 4 on the board, if you will, guys. Verse 4. And in Nehemiah there, it's a story of God wanting to restore the Jerusalem and restore the city. And others said, this is what the people said. They went, if you read around, you'll see, they were also those who said, we have borrowed money for the king's tax on our lands and our vineyards. Have you heard that? And they said, we've gone out and we bought and we brought out money, we borrowed money so that we could increase our fields and our lands and our vineyards. Verse 5. Yet now our flesh is as the flesh of our brethren, our children as their children, and indeed we are forcing our sons and daughters to be slaves. And some of our daughters have been brought into slavery. It is not in our power to redeem them, for other men have our lands and our vineyards. Psalm 37 says in verse 21, the wicked borrows and does not pay back, but the righteous is gracious and gives. Now, that story there tells us what happens when we borrow, and we borrow in foolishness. We end up becoming slaves, and our children get affected, and they become the slave of our doing or our debt. As it is in the kingdom of God, there is always a spirit. There's the Spirit of the Lord that's behind all the activities of the kingdom. If you see generosity happening through the church, you see the church, but it's really the spirit behind the church that causes it to be generous. Come on. So when you see generosity, you're seeing the spirit behind the generosity, because really in human levels, we're not very generous people. But because of the Spirit of God, He changes our nature. And so if you see somebody being generous, it's the Spirit of God that's behind it. Can you hear that? Now, here's a question. If you took the word want out of your vocabulary, what would your life be like? If you replaced it with need, where would your life be? Looking at debt, if you took the word want, how many of you hear people all the time, I want. I want that. I want this. I want that. Take a teenager kid out to a mall, and what do? They want things to death. I got grandsons that are, you drive around with them and they see a new souped up Dodge truck with, all this. I want one of them. And they see a Corvette. I want one of them. And I tell them all the time, you can have it. And they go, really? And I go, yes. I'm going to help you get it. Oh, Papa. And then I tell them, you have to go to work. And it's like, Debt is a trap. It is a vicious cycle that can cause problems in health, marriage, workplace, and every area of your life. Here's a comparison. Investment is something positive you do financially for the sake of tomorrow. Debt is something you do financially at the expense of tomorrow. How many say, Lord, it's time I declare a war on debt? Going to war means that you and I have to begin a rigorous routine of training. How many of you know if you're going into war, you got to train? Yes. That's why these Al-Qaeda and ISIS guys, it's so amazing to me that they used PlayStation to orchestrate the design of their attack in Paris. I mean, Mom and Dad, listen to me. Don't buy a PlayStation this year. Don't buy Xbox. And don't buy them stupid games. We have to be people of character if we're going to really wage war against debt. If you can't buy it, you don't need it. Hello? When I want to buy a car, I buy it. I told y'all before, I wanted a nice sports car, and I wanted a 2-seater so that only me and my honey could ride in it. I told the elders, I said, I don't want a 4-seater. I don't want nobody, I don't want no elders riding with me. I want me and my honey. When I bought it, I paid cash for it. So I owe nobody for it. Hello? And it was 2 seats. Me and my honey. Come on. It's expedient 1 year from where we were just at that I come back to you and tell you that it's still relevant to get out of debt. Some of you will go buy for Christmas gifts and give to people that don't even like you. Look at Romans. Let every person be loyal, subject to the governing civil authorities. For there is no authority except from God by His permission, His sanction, and those who exist do so by God's appointment. Continue. Therefore, he who resists and sets himself up against the authorities resists what God has appointed and arranged in divine order, and those who resist will bring down judgment upon themselves. How many know God sets in the offices, political offices and governments, He sets those people there to help us. Now go to verse 7. Go to verse 7. You got to pay your taxes to the ones paying taxes. Render to all men their dues. Pay taxes to whom taxes are due, revenue to whom revenue is due, respect to whom respect is due, and honor to whom honor is due. Come on. Keep going. Verse 8. Keep out of and owe no man anything except to love one another. For he who loves his neighbor, who practices loving others, has fulfilled the law relating to one's fellow man, meeting all of its requirements. Listen to me right here. I want to tell you something. You can take the Christian approach that you're supposed to turn the other cheek in the midst of violence. And that's fine. You turn the other cheek. It does not tell the government to turn its cheek. So when violence breaks out in our street, stand down orders are not from God. Governments are there to protect us. They're there and they're not under. They carry the sword. They execute with the sword. You can step back and pray for the wicked, but the government must execute on your behalf for protection. Getting out of debt is not hard. Getting out of debt is a discipline. Getting out of debt requires you to put value where it needs to be. My last point today. It's time to understand money. How do you define money? Does it have a value, or is it a measuring system of value? Still there? Yes. Money in our culture really has no actual value today. That paper money that all of us fight for, scramble for, do all that piece of money right there ain't worth nothing today. It's a piece of paper. It's not worth anything. It doesn't have a tender. It doesn't have something connected. The currency that we call money is no longer established by the gold standard. In reality, the things it can purchase determine the value of the money. How many of you know that dollar is only valued by what it can buy for you? The minute you put value on something is the minute everybody wants what you value. A dollar bill or $1,000 bill has no actual value. It is no longer worth a certain amount of gold. What gives our currency value is what it can buy. How much is college worth? Medical degree. Cadillac, Ford, Rolls-Royce, handmade Rolls-Royce. Somebody said, we're going to make a car and we're going to put value on it. And we're going to put a lady out front. I took my Volkswagen, my black Volkswagen, took the Volkswagen emblem off the hood and screwed on it the emblem of a trophy of a woman standing with a thing around her with her hands out like a Rolls Royce. I put value on my Volkswagen. It's true, isn't it, babe? What is money? I believe that money is really a measure of value. A house has value, and the amount of money that it is sold or purchased for is the measuring of its value. So money is neither good or bad. It is simply the value we place on things that we purchase because we value them. Our checkbooks tell more about our priorities and the value systems that we live by and determine the way we live in our life than our old, tattered, black Bibles tell of our lives. The old, tattered, black Bible may look weathered from you thumbing through the pages, but the checkbook tells us what you value. It's impossible to approach a worship service without realizing the real meaning of worship. Worship comes from an old word that really means worthship or attribution of worth. So when I worship Him, I'm saying He's worthy of my worship. I value God, and because I value God, a God that is not seen, people who have not met God will see what I value and want what I value. If I value an old car or an old garment and people want to buy it at crazy prices, if I worship my God, I'm putting value on who He is, and people who don't know Him want what I've said He's valuable. When you see His worth, you place value on who He is. See, I come to church to give to God because I'm putting value on who He is in my life. When I come to church and I tip God, That's who and how much value I put on what he did for me. You see, I value my wife. That's why after 45 years, I value her. Everything about her, everything in her life is special to me, important to me. I value the gift that God gave me. She's valuable. I polish her up once in a while. Buy some stuff that makes her shine. See, gold on her gets devalued because the value of her. Manhunt. Manhunt. I'm gonna make sure you get one of these. Manhunt. Man on the hunt. I can't sing it. All right. Let's go here. Let's go here. We're misbehaving now. When you see his worth, you place value. See, when I see him touching people's lives, I'm attracted to him. That's what will attract people in the city to want to stop killing each other and worship him. Because the church in our city must begin to put value on who he is. Dads, moms need to value who he is. If you put value on him, kids will want. We put value on bling and they want the bling. We will put value on a Mercedes and they want to steal the Mercedes. But if I put value on my relationship with him, on what he did for me, he rescued me, he changed me, then the gang leader and the drug addict says, I don't know, but he's put value on something that I want. When you stop valuing him, you make him cheap. You make him some little pictorial Bible study. Moses, Jesus, and Noah. But when you value him, that you say, I want to live for him. I want to serve him. I want his life and my life to be the same. I want to run after him at any cost because I have valued what he did. He bled for me. He died for me. He made a way for me. He made a place for me to come. I value this church. Some of you don't value it. Mark chapter 14, put it on the board. And verse 3. While he was at Bethany, a guest in the house of Simon, the leper, as he was reclining at a table, a woman came with an alabaster box of ointment, perfume, pure nard, very costly. Come on, keep going. Precious. And she broke the jar and poured the perfume over his head. But there was some who were moved with indignation and said to themselves, to what purpose was the anointment perfume thus wasted? You see, because these men sitting there had no value on who she put that oil on. For it was possible to have sold this perfume for more than 300 denarii, a laboring man's wage for a year, and to have given the money to the poor. Sounds religious. And they censured and reproved her. And Jesus said, let her alone. Why are you troubling her? She has done a good and a beautiful thing to me. Praiseworthy and noble. Come on, keep going. And you always have the poor with you. And whenever you wish, you could do good to them. But you will not always have me. She has done what she could. She came beforehand to anoint my body for the burial. You could read it in Luke chapter 7. It's the same story. get the picture. This is a woman, I've said it so many times. She comes with imagine with me, she's got on the prettiest white dress you've ever seen. She has held it by the corner so that she could walk through the dirty streets of Jerusalem and walk past the mud puddles and the piles of dung from animals so not to soil her dress. And she comes with a scarf around her head, and she's got a box in her hand. That box is valuable. They just gave it value. Now all of a sudden they're all focused on what the value is, but she took what was valuable and put it on that which was more valuable. She broke that thing open, and everybody in the room began to smell like what she valued. When you begin to worship God, when you live a life of worship, everywhere you go, everything around you begins to smell like the sacrifice of what you said is valuable. She did the weirdest thing. She kneels down. She begins to cry. She begins to weep, and she cried so much there was enough water from her tears to wipe his feet clean. She took off her scarf. Not her scarf did she use for his feet. She threw it to the side. She shook this long black hair, and she dropped down, and she began to wipe his feet. She said, my hair, for a woman's hair, is her glory. She said, I give to the one that I say has more value in my life than anything else. I take my hair and I give him glory. Some of you can't wait. Some of you get all bent out of shape when they stop saying Merry Christmas at the mall, and you make that a big issue. I'll tell you what's bigger than that. It's when you come in the house of God and you're not willing to say his name, or when you go into the mall and you're not willing to say his name. If you're willing to say his name, don't worry about what they say. You just say, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. I love Jesus. I'm excited about God. I went in the store the other day, my wife and I bought a shotgun. I own a bunch of guns. I like guns. I bought a shotgun, and it's a certain kind, 12 gauge, and it says HD on it. And I'm thinking, you know, what's the thing, HD TV, high definition. I'm thinking, what in the world? Bought a robotic gun or something? And I bought one of these already. I gave it to one of my sons, and I've never seen it again, like all my tools, etc. And anyway, so I buy this gun, and it says HD. So I leaned over. I said, sir, what is the HD on there? And he goes like this. He leans over and he says, it's home defense. And I backed up and said, home defense? You see, because all this political correct stuff has got the church walking into the mall going, praise the Lord. I love Jesus. I'm walking down the mall one day, and I forgot where I was, and I was speaking in tongues. And a lady came over to me and said, sir, can I help you? Where are you from? What country? God, I didn't know what to do for a minute. And I said, Kingdom of God. She said, is that near London? I said, no. I'm walking down the mall one day. My wife knows this woman. I see her. And I said, Barbara, how you doing? Down she went. So I could have left alone. When somebody hides from you, you should leave it alone. But I didn't. I went down the aisle. She's down there looking for something like oil for a car or something. I knew she didn't know about a car. And I said, Barbara. Oh, Pastor Bart. She's backslidden. She's away from God. I said, I can't believe I finally found you. Praise God. I said, give me a hug, girl. It was like hugging a popsicle. She just stood there. I said, can I tell you what God is doing? Because I'm happy. Because I have put value on what's really valuable. My walk with God is more valuable than anything. You can't take it. The devil can't take it. Nobody can take it. If you fall away, if you backslide, you can't take what God did for me. Councilman, I apologize today. This group is just a little crazy. David said this when he was in the wilderness of Judah, the place of praise. You see, praise is still in the wilderness. Come on, saints. Praise ought to be still in the wilderness. When you're in the dry place, when you're in the place you don't think God's even there. In the wilderness, Judah, the house of praise. David said, oh God, you are my God. Earnestly will I seek you. My inner self thirsts for you. My flesh longs for you and is faint in you. In a dry, in a weary land where no water is. Oh, saints, I don't need a new gift for Christmas to make me worship. I don't need another gift in my life to make me live the way I live. I don't need another toy. I don't need another thing. Come on. My whole being. Now here's the hard part. My whole being follows hard after you and clings closely to you. And your right hand upholds me. If I fall, you're going to pick me up. If I stumble, you're going to pick me up. Because your right hand, who is sitting at the right hand of the Father? Jesus. He's the right hand. The right hand. He'll pick you up. He'll grab hold of you. He'll say it's all right. He'll say you're going to make it. He'll say tomorrow's going to get better. He said, I know because I made tomorrow. I made tomorrow before you ever got up. Because I see the beginning from the end. So God says tomorrow's going to be okay. And how do I know, God? Because I made it. And when I made it, I had you in mind. That I'd go before you. I'd come behind you. I'd be at your right hand. I'd be at your left hand. I'll never leave you. I'll never leave you. I'll never leave you. I'll never forsake you.